Hey, everyone. Welcome to today's circuit stream workshop where you're going to learn VR spellcasting. I'm super excited for today. I think it's going to be awesome. And I see some emojis, so I'm assuming you can hear me and you can see me, which is fantastic. Hey, Christian. Hey, Sergio, Ronan, Jean, Dayan, Emiliano, Eshan, Craig, Audrey, Johnny, Matthew. Colt. It's going too fast. Sertay, Jillian, Louise, Brandon, Giancarlo, Adrian, Victor, Aiching, Benjamin, Keegan. Okay, wow. I'm loving the excitement, loving the emojis, loving everything. Wonderful. All right, so keep them coming throughout the whole workshop. And then the next thing I want to know is where you are all tuning in from. So I'm tuning in from Calgary, Alberta, physically, but in my mind, I'm here, Hogwarts. So I'm in the theme for today's workshop. All right, I have Cape Town, LA, Vancouver, Chicago, Toronto, Burnaby, Medicine Hat, Minneapolis, London. Oh my gosh, Agora Hills, Anaheim, London, London, Louisiana. I love it. Scotland, Ucluelet. Did I say that right? Saint-Hélène de Bago. Malaysia, Chicago, Australia, Tofino. That is Hogwarts, Andrew. That is. I should have gotten one of your scenes to put as a background. Anaheim. Oh, makes me think of Disney. Kansas City. Canmore. Yay. Toronto, NYC. Oshawa. Ooh, very nice. São Paulo. Oi, André. Tudo bem? Nelson, BC. I've heard it's beautiful. India. Oh, we're in India. Amazing. Brasileiro. Yes. Well, as you can all see, needless to say that our students, our audience is global. So this is always one of the most exciting things about our workshops, and then also about our classes and just about circuit stream in general. So I'm so excited to have you all here with us. So keep them coming, say where you're located. Let's continue to use the chat. A couple of other things before we get things started. So you can also use the chat for other comments, for emojis during the workshop, and then to network. So you can drop in your LinkedIn so that we can stay connected even after the workshop. So we have a couple of Circuit Stream team members who will be posting some important links that you can access, so stay tuned to that as well. Alrighty, so a couple of other things. To the top, to the right of the chat tab, you will see the questions tab. So we are going to have a Q&A at the end, but be sure to drop your questions only there, not in the chat. Otherwise, they just get buried in the conversation and then we don't get to them. And then to the right of that, we have our polls tab. So I'm going to just launch two very quick polls today. I'll let you know when I launch them. And then I just want you to go over there and, take your vote. It's super quick, just so I can have an idea of who's in the audience today, what your experience levels are. So that's basically it. My name is Luciana Fortes, or Lucy, if you don't already know, if this is your first workshop with us. And today we're going to be joined by our expert, Usman Moore, or as we like to call him, Ozzy. All right, so what do we have planned for you all today? In this Learn VR spellcasting workshop, I'm going to start us off with a brief introduction about who we are and what we do. And then I'm going to invite Ozzy to take you all into a VR deep dive, a Hogwarts vibe. We got Halloween coming up, so we're very thematic, very on trend today. And then I'm going to come back and wrap up with a couple resources, and then we'll go to live Q&A. If for some reason you have to drop off because you have to go to work or go to sleep, not to worry. We are going to be sending the recording to all of the registrants, everybody who's here today, as well as the project files and the resources. So if you're a total beginner, I recommend that you just watch. Don't try to follow along because it is going to be a bit fast-paced. And then later on, when you receive the recording and the project files, you can try to do it on your own. I see different languages in the chat. This is amazing. Hey, Christian. Good to see you. Amazing. And you have Zach starting your XR career on Monday. Wow, that's awesome. Okay, so who am I? Who's this person talking to you directly from our Hogwarts headquarters? So as I mentioned, I'm Luciana Fortes. You can call me Lucy. And I'm the student experience coordinator at CircuitStream. So I'm here to make sure that everybody feels supported in their educational journey. I've also been called, fun guru, great experience specialist, favorite person in the team. So you can pick any of those. But kidding aside, I've worked in education for over 7 years. And a fun fact about me is that both of my degrees are in dance. And in 2016, if you were in Rio, you would have seen me dance in the opening ceremony of the Rio 2016 Paralympic Games. William, yes, fun guru. Awesome. And then for our awesome expert of the day, Usman Mur, also known as Ozzy. Ozzy is a lead instructor and XR developer at CircuitStream. Can I hear your snaps all around?
Thank you.
Ozzy has over 10 years of experience in Unity, over 7 years of experience in XR development. And I've heard he has said that he plays in the drums in a jazz band. Maybe he can show it to you later when he comes on. Although I've never seen him play. Ozzy, you need to play for us. Come on. That's not fair. All right, so us here at CircuitStream, who do we are and what do we do? So CircuitStream was founded in 2015 when we realized that there was a gap in the educational world in terms of providing training for XR professionals, enthusiasts, anything in XR. So since then, we've, on our journey, we trained over 40,000 learners, and that number just keeps on growing. We're also proud to say that we are a Unity certified training and channel partner. Now, what does this mean? So channel partner are approved based on their expertise, focus on quality education, and commitment to providing the highest level of training possible. We have a very close relationship with Unity, and all of our courses prepare you to take their exams as well, which is pretty neat. Most recently, we've also established partnerships with some very, very, very top tier universities. We have the University of British Columbia Extended Learning Department. We have NATE, we have the Talent Ladder powered by IWU, and the University of Toronto School of Continuing Studies. Yes, UBC represents, Johnny. Amazing. And thank you, Peter. So if you are in any of these areas, and for some reason, I know you're coming here today to learn a bit about XR, and if you're interested in taking any of our courses in partnership with these universities, and you're in these locations, definitely stay tuned until the end because I'm going to be talking about our offerings through them. And here we have just some of the students that we've had the pleasure to train. So as you can see, we have a wide range of, fields and companies and different sizes. So we have Hulu, YouTube, Hershey, we have Facebook, Walmart. So really lots of big companies and lots of variety there, which is really exciting. So all of our students come from really diverse backgrounds, and that's one of the best things for me to see is really, all the different applicabilities that XR has. All right, so how do we provide our training? So definitely through our workshops, which we offer on a regular basis, but also through our academic offerings. I'm just going to go over these in high level so you have a sense of, what we offer in terms of training, but then I'm going to go over this in detail later on. So we have our XR development with Unity course. That's to create experiences in XR, and we use Unity for that. It's a live online course, part-time. We have 2 cohorts coming up, November 16th through the university partners and November 30th via CircuitStream. And then we have our interaction design of prototyping for XR, which is in the same structure, like same length, and live, online, all that good stuff, but you don't need any coding. So if you're really into design, you don't like coding, you like to, look at the choices behind, the experiences that are being created, this would be a good course for you. So we have one coming up November 8th, and applications, are open for all of these courses, actually. Then we have our new course. We're super excited for this. Introduction to Unity 3D development. So 8 weeks long, 64 hours of instruction. We have our first cohort November 29th. And this is a project-based 8-week live online course, which, as the name suggests, is an intro to Unity and walks you through creating your first real-time 3D application while focusing on Unity's key systems and functionality. So if you're new to Unity, this could be a great course. We also offer live mentorship, so everything is live and super engaging in what we do. Those are one of our key education pieces. How much is the course? I'm going to be talking about that in the end in more detail, but Dion has posted the link which has that information. And also one-on-one support. We also offer personalized team training if you're an educator or a business and you're looking to train your team. And that's it in terms of our academic offerings. So what about today? Let's focus on what you are all learning today. So today, Ozzy is going to show you how to set up a VR scene, how to manage inputs in VR, how to control shader behaviors with flags, implementing 3D models in your project, and haptics and controller feedback. So what does this look like? I'm just going to give you a couple of examples of current students that have used some of these techniques and tools in our XR Dev course. So we have some awesome examples here from Chris Lee, Monica, and Helman in terms of creating a Unity scene. In terms of importing 3D models and creating characters, we have Nicholas, Nick, Sky, and Mark. So lots of variety there. Look at this. Look how fun. This is very Halloween themed. And then we also have C# scripting used for VR. So you can do so much with coding. And these are just some of the examples. So this one is very on topic for our workshop today. So this is by Andrew. And then we have this by Brian, sorry. Oh, look at that. I spelled brain. Apologies. It's because he's so smart. And then we also teach AR in our courses, if that's something that you're interested in. So here are just a couple of examples as well. All right, so I've been talking a lot about Unity. Ozzy, I know. Whoops. I guess that's a good typo to make, spelling brain instead of Brian. So I've been talking a lot about Unity. So Unity is where we create all of these experiences, right? And Ozzy's going to be showing you that today. But I'd love to know, on a scale of 0 to 10, how much Unity experience you have. So I'm publishing our first poll. It's published. So if you can go ahead to the polls tab and just vote. So 0 being you've never seen Unity before, and 10 meaning you're an expert. So let's look at these answers, huh? Okay, we have 0s, 2s, 3s. We have up until 8. So if like 7 and above, this is going to be like super easy for you. But for the rest, I do see majority beginners. Don't worry, because Ozzy's going to go through the bits and bolts. And then again, when you do this at home, you'll be able to rewatch the recording. Alrighty, so what is Unity? Unity is the free 3D, it's a free 3D game development engine for building games, simulations, and experiences. So essentially, it's the easiest way to begin making apps for XR, which means extended reality, which is just a fancy umbrella term for AR and VR, which mean augmented reality and virtual reality. So what applications do I need to follow along? So you would need a Unity to follow along. If you already have it in your computer, you can follow along. It is going to be a bit fast-paced, so we recommend that you do that afterwards. But if you've already got it installed and you have some experience with it, then by all means, go ahead. So just some info about Unity. So Unity is used to create over 60% of the world's content and applications. And in terms of its impact, it's global. So 3 billion is the times that apps developed by Unity creators are downloaded per month. Check that out, per month. And Unity creators live and work in 190 countries. So how do you go about creating your apps in XR? So it all starts with your brilliant idea, and then you create it in an engine such as Unity. You push it out to an SDK such as Oculus, Steam VR, and Microsoft HoloLens, and then you experience it in one of their respective devices. All right, so I know you're sick of me, so without further ado, let's get this show on the road. And I welcome Ozzy to take the stage and cast his magic on you. Haha.
Well, thank you very much, Lucy, for setting all that up. I know I could not go over all of that at once, but thanks again. All right, welcome everyone to the dev portion of today's workshop. We're going to go over how to get your VR rig kind of set up. And instead of using the more simpler XR interaction toolkit, I want to give you access to this XR plugin management system, which really gives you quite a bit of control of what's going on. If If you're taking the design course, you'll do XR Interaction Toolkit. If you take the dev course, you'll do XR Plugin Management to really get a boom. What kind of VR headset is that? This is the Oculus Quest. And over here is the HTC Vive. Well, that's getting blurred out, so I'll leave that alone. But yeah, so with that said, using XR Plugin Management today, I'm using Unity 2020, as that's LTS, so the long-term service version of 2020. And let me share my screen. I'll show you what's going on. Let me pull up the share screen here. Oh, and to answer Andrew's question, Andrew, you already took the course. So even though you've graduated, we are still holding office hours 6 times a week. And as an alumni, you have access to those for free going forward. So don't forget about that. We'll miss you if you don't come. All right. So that being said, here we go. There is my test version of Unity. Do you want to mute your notification just so it doesn't make the pop sounds? Oh, I didn't realize that would come up. Mute my notifications. There you go. I will always do that. Okay, good, Andrew. Good. Look forward to seeing you again. All right, so let's try this out. Just take a look at what we're doing here. For anyone interested as kind of where this workshop was inspired from, I'm working on a VR game called Rifts of Euphoria that has this in a more intense version, but let's try this out. So we're going to get our hands in VR, and these hands are free to use. They're made by Oculus for their developers, so you don't have to pay any sort of fees to use them. This staff model comes with a free asset in Unity, so you can probably use that without you can use it without paying, but you may have to provide some sort of credit. The environment is also free. Feel free to get that off Unity. I'll provide links to those as well, but they're all part of the GitHub, and these targets I just made in Blender, so that doesn't really count. But yeah, so the idea is you pull the trigger on the controller, and boom, lightning spell shoots out, boom, boom, and they bounce around. And if you're decent at aiming, you can see a result there. And there we go. I'm bad, but there's a bit of a noise effect that alters the path, but it's really not an excuse to me missing that much. But there we go. It's a nice effect, and that's kind of what we'll go over as well. We're going to do setting up your whole rig. So you have your headset tracking, you have your hands tracking. We have a little staff hooked up with our hand. And when we pull the trigger, that's our first input method, which will make something happen. In our case, we'll work on a nice little effect. Now, typically, I like to use what's called VFX Graph. It's a plugin for Unity. And it makes great particle systems, and they're very powerful. You can make 1 million particles flying around all at once, and it would be less expensive than maybe 1,000 shuriken particles. Unity's default particle system is called the shuriken system. We're going to have to use that today because I'm targeting the Android platform, and Android can't really handle VFX Graph that well. So that being said, shuriken system, not as versatile, not as powerful, but still very good. As you can see, it has the benefit of detecting collisions in the environment. VFX Graph doesn't actually do that. And the reason for that is VFX Graph uses your GPU, whereas the Shuriken system uses your CPU. And all your physics calculations are handled by your CPU. So when I say physics, that includes collisions. There's ways to fudge your calculations and whatnot, but with VFX Graph, but it's not really built in. All right, anyways, let's get past this point. This is fun though, casting spells. And with that in mind, you can definitely customize what spells you're shooting. It doesn't have to be this lightning spell. You can really make a lot. And I'll show a quick video later on for anyone interested about Rifts of Euphoria and how crazy VFX Graph can really get. Okay, so I'm going to get out of play mode here, and let's just make this a part of Unity once again. Let's get this over here. All right, so I have a pretty low-res screen right now, just so it's not totally illegible for you guys. So let's take a look. I'm going to quickly describe Unity here in a nutshell. If you're experienced, I don't want to waste too much of your time. And for anyone else who's brand new, I'll give you some background here. Okay, so this is your Unity interface. This is what you see the first time you launch it. As you can see quickly on my left, there's a hierarchy window. It lists all the objects in your scene, in your environment. Project window at the bottom is like a quick access to your Finder or your File Explorer kind of thing. So quick look here, and you can drag and drop things into Unity, except folders you can't, but 3D models you can just bring into the scene as you see. This big window is your scene view. This is you as the developer getting to move around in your world, place things where you want them to be positioned. Turn that ability to grab something like that off. As you can see, you can move these things around. And you can see them listed here. I'm just going to turn off that ability once again. And then I've provided a README in the project, just so you know where I downloaded the environment and the weapon, the staff, the wand, I should say. But beyond that, the right side here is if you have an object selected or some object in your project window. Object could be, in the hierarchy window, I should say object. It'll give you some information about it. If you select an asset, such as a script in your project window, for example, here it gives you a preview of what's written in there. All right, so that's kind of the basis here. My scene view, as I showed, my game window here is where you test your application out. Now, with that fact being said, in code, these are called game objects. Your testing window is called the game window. Obviously, you can make a lot more than just games with Unity. All right, and the asset store has been moved to the online market, so that's not really a useful tab anymore. You got some gizmos and such to mess around with to help visualize objects that are invisible in the scene, such as your sun icon here that controls the lighting in the environment. So a lot of fun stuff you can do. So let's take a look at creating our own scene, setting up our XR rig. All right, so I don't know what Alexa is talking about, not having an answer for, but I'm going to unplug that little thing there. All right, so we're going to go File, New Scene. If you are using a new project, you're probably wanting to use the universal render pipeline for this. So I'm just going to start up here a new scene. Yeah, sure. I won't save and then make any changes. And let's take a look at Unity Hub first. So when you create a new project, you ideally want to use Unity Hub. Unity Hub allows you to choose what version of Unity you're using. In the install section, if you have Unity installed, in the drop-down add modules, you want to have Android build support if you are creating a Oculus Quest application. So you need Android build support. Here, if we're creating a new project, we would say new, and we could choose our version. If you have multiple versions, you can click on this drop-down, choose your version. I went with 2020. Any version of 2020 will work for this. And then we have a few render pipelines to choose from. We're just going to use a universal render pipeline. This is the most optimized render pipeline. High definition render pipeline is kind of optimized, but it's more designed for high fidelity graphics. Is the universal render pipeline the standard project? So this is what we're going to be using. The standard is the 3D system. This is the old legacy pipeline, but it was not really a good option anymore. I would just pick one of these two. All right, but with that said, type in the name of your project, choose where you save it, and you'd create a project, and you would end up in this window. Now, 3D is old. That's correct, Ronan. Thanks for clarifying. You're welcome. Okay, so now that we're here, we want to create a new scene. Now, once we've imported our, I'm going to go to my imports folder here. This is where I brought in all the assets. Once we've imported the simple nature pack, which you can go to the Unity asset store, pull that up, go to the Unity asset store. I'm just going to quickly pull that up here. You would have to visit the asset store, search for whatever asset you want. So, for example, environment, and you search up many options for your environment, and you can choose to get a free one for sure. And choose whichever one you want to download. So I can't find it right away. I could copy and paste the link, but you choose which asset you want, and you say add to my assets. Open in Unity is the next option there. And what it does is here, it will open up a window called the package manager. And the package manager, this is going to be our many use cases for our project here, but this is what's going to contain all of the things that you import into Unity. And of course, you're going to have some errors here and there, so just refresh the list and open in Unity again from the website. That's probably going to do it for you. And then you can find whatever assets you've downloaded and then import into your project. So we've done that with the Simple Nature pack, I believe. Let me quickly pull that up here. There we go. Simple Nature. Sorry about that. Okay, well, whatever it may be, let's say Simple Dungeons, I would download and import, bring that into a project. And I can go into that Simple Nature Pack folder, and then let's just say we go to the many options for which scene you want to go to. As you can see, this project has a HDRP version, a LWRP version, and a URP version. Now, as a quick distinction, LWRP and URP are technically the same thing. LWRP is just an older version of URP. They just changed the name, basically. So I'm going to just load up URP. Oh, sorry, this is a import Unity package, and then you can import some more stuff. And then we go to the scenes, and that's where we load up whichever demo scene we want. So for example, we'll load up our demo scene here. And that's how we get our environment going. Now, there's a lot of effects in this environment that, well, we don't necessarily want, such as post-processing. Post-processing is a great way to make your application look beautiful. However it's designed, there seems to be a lot of effects. So maybe don't want to use that for an Android application. And when I say Android, I mean Oculus Quest. Demo objects are fine. It's got its own cameras, so I'm going to delete those as well. I'll leave that be. So this is what we want. As you can see, it doesn't look as nice, but it's good enough for the demonstration. All right, so we've got our simple scene here. Now, I want to be able to create a VR rig in our scene. Okay, is all Windows development or Mac support as well? Is this all Windows development? I'm sure, Brad. This is a VR workshop, so Mac doesn't support VR. You can build from a Mac a VR application, but you can't run it on Mac, if that answers your question. But yeah, if you're using Mac, the build process through Unity would be the same. You just wouldn't be able to hit play and test it out. That would be the difference. Okay, so now that we're here, we want to create a rig for our VR player, but we don't have any of the assets required to do that. So what we need to do first is go up to Edit, go down to Project Settings, and all the way at the bottom is our XR plugin management option. Now, I've already imported that into this project, but you'll see this big button that says Install XR plugin management. Now, it takes some time, so I wanted to skip that for the video, but for the recording or the workshop, I mean. We can install that, and then you'll see this window appear. The PC version, I'm just going to enable Oculus because I'm testing with Oculus Link, so it's as if I'm using a desktop Oculus headset. And then for the Android version, I also want to enable Oculus so that I could build onto the Quest and play this application standalone from my computer. If I wanted to work on XR projects in the future, I should stray away from Macs. It is preferable to use a Windows computer because you can test on your computer. You can just hit play and test it out. There's some modifications you can make to a Mac that are kind of hacky to make it work there, but those modifications are fairly expensive, and it would be cheaper just to get it wouldn't be totally cheaper, but it would be better to just get a Windows computer. But again, totally doable. You can develop for Mac, build it, test it out, and then change it. It's just a longer cycle, that's all. Yes, the recording is available after. Okay, so now that I have XR plugin management installed, we are good. Now, one of the things we're going to do is handle input for our rig. Now, the only issue with that is there isn't any mapped input by default. So if I go to my input manager, The only things I would see are these debugs and basic inputs. So what I would need to do is I would go to assets and click seed XR input bindings. And that would give, instead of being like 20 or something here, it would become 69. And then boom, if I scroll down, I get all these cross-platform VR controller options, such as for example, if you're using the Valve Index, my left index touch option and such, or most importantly, our left trigger button. So that is pulling the trigger on a left stick, or the equivalent on the right trigger button. We're going to use buttons for now, even though the trigger is an axis, which is going to make our coding a little bit easier, and nice that they have by default mapped this out for us. But anyways, that sets us up. We're ready to set up a VR rig, those steps. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to need a camera in our scene. Right now, as you can see, game window, not rendering anything. So I'm going to create a XR. Wait, no, actually, I'm just going to create a camera at the bottom here in my scene. So I just did game object, camera, or right click in here, camera. So I brought a camera into my scene. It's in some weird position. I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take its position. This is the transform component, as you can see in the inspector. I'm going to set its position to 0, 0, 0. So now it's in the center of the world. It's nice, nicely positioned. There's this thing about clipping planes. I would just suggest you bring that down to 0.01. I think by default it will change this, so I'll check that. But there you go. You've got your camera 0, 0, 0. Now what we're going to do is make sure this camera is tagged as main camera. Now, you always want one main camera in your scene, as that's a singleton available to every script in your project. It's a nice thing to be able to reference to. But also, when we click in here, we have an XR option that says convert main camera to XR rig. So we want to make sure that's tagged accordingly. So I click on that, and boom, nicely, it has given me a XR headset. Not a whole rig, but an XR head. Okay, so now that I have that in my scene, again, it's positioned nicely. I'm going to click on this drop down here. I see the camera offset. As you can see, it's kind of defining the height of the user, and you can adjust this as you want. And if I click on camera down here, you'll see the camera component has default clipping plane been reduced because it's a VR camera. But anyways, it has a tracked pose driver component. This is what's responsible for tracking its movement with our VR headset. That's the key component. This is also available when you're working with AR Foundation, but I'll leave that be for now. Okay, so we've got a camera, but we need some controllers. So what we're going to do, and this is good practice, is to create an empty game object as a child of this camera offset. So I right click on the camera offset, create empty. Now an empty game object, I'm just going to rename this by selecting it, double clicking on it, or selecting it and then pressing F2. And I'm going to call this our left hand for now. And just press F a few times. There we go. It's a good distance. Anyways, so there is a empty game object. It has nothing but a position. So what we want to do is give it some basic properties that will help us track with the controller, as well as give it some sort of visual and physics, these kinds of things. So a rig is referring to the user, their headset and their controllers all together. That's the rig. Is Apple better for AR? That depends. AR is typically made on mobile. However, if you're going for the HoloLens, you'll want to use a Windows computer. If you're developing for mobile, if you want to target iPhones and iPads, you need to use a Mac. Otherwise, you can do some shady things. I mean, not saying that I have these things on my computer, not saying I have these things, but you could use something like iOS Project Builder to circumvent the fact that you're trying to develop for Apple. Okay, so with that said, it's our rig. We have a empty game object called left hand. Let's make it track with our controller. So we add a component called, once again, the tracked pose driver. This is the most important component. And this time, what we're going to do, we're going to change some of these properties. First, it says generic XR device. We want to change that to generic XR controller. The reason it says generic, because it doesn't just act as an Oculus controller. You can refer to the Windows mixed reality controllers, for example. Now, the pose source is defaulted to left controller, which is perfect. We'll leave that be. I won't get into the details of the rest. But now we have a empty game object, no visual though, that will track with our hand. What we're going to do is we're going to add a rigid body to it. Now, this isn't necessary for the workshop, but I would suggest adding a rigid body to it that is kinematic. And actually, just for simplicity, I will leave that out of the curriculum for now. I don't want to get too complicated in here. Okay, so we got a left hand, empty game object, it's tracking. So now, as a part of the project, I've got for you guys here a left hand FBX file and a right hand FBX file. They no longer seem to be available on the Oculus. There was the Oculus Art Assets folder there, but it seems like they've removed the hand models. They still have controller models, but not the hand models. But these are free to use. So as a child of our left hand, we can drag and drop this left hand object, and boom, you can see how I have this left hand model. Great. And if you wanted to be honest, you could just scale that and get the right hand model. That's just a little trick for anyone who's 3D modeling. But if you have experienced 3D modeling, you probably already know that. But anyways, so now I've got a visual for my left hand, and that'll be fine. We're not going to interact with it or anything, but that'll be a good starting point. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another empty game object. This time I'll call it right hand. See, I like to use camel cases. I will add once again, a tracked pose driver component. These components are responsible for adding functions Testing. I think that's back. Okay, good. All right, sorry about that, y'all. All right. So what I was saying was the right hand empty game object, that's going to also become our right controller. And so all I did this time was, again, generic XR device becomes generic XR controller, and pose source becomes right controller instead of the default left controller. Now we want another visual for this. So I'm going to grab our right hand model, make that a child, and you can see both are there. And the key aspect of this is that they are positioned at the same point as our cameras, because once you start moving your headset and your camera, it's going to be relative to each other. There you go. All right. Now with our right hand, we've got to make sure the model is a child of the empty game object. We're going to add a little extra something. We want to have the wand as our child object, so we are waving something around. Ozzy will be showing how to build a shape. All good. What do you mean by the shape? I blame Alexa. Yes, it's always her fault. Will Ozzy be showing how to build a shape? I'm not sure what you mean. 3D modeling, maybe? Oh, no. That'll be too much to cover in one workshop. We've had workshops in the past that cover 3D modeling and stuff along visuals more. So definitely worth watching some of the older ones as well. Let me double check. Mike, all good. Okay. All right. So with that said, we will alter the 3D model a little bit. I'm just going to show you kind of how to do that. And you all can kind of perfect it, fine tune it. But anyways, one of the things that we want to also get in our imports folder, you'll find is the 3D items wand pack. Again, so this is a free asset. The README file, you might want to check that out for, to make use of the items, pivot points, So it's given some information. So this person's probably happy that I'm, advertising their product incidentally. Spheres on a molecular level, atoms are round, right? Okay, so what we've done is gone to the items pack, the wand pack, and if I go to prefabs folder, I see a lot of pink. Now, I want to explain this real quick. This is to do with the difference in render pipelines. This pack was created in the legacy render pipeline, the 3D one. But we're using the URP, the universal render pipeline. So if I select one of these prefabs, you'll notice that I've changed the shader. So if I select one of these objects, you'll see, it has the visual aspect and it has a material shown at the bottom and it has a shader. Now by default, it's going to look very strange. So let me bring in a wand into the scene, and there's many to choose from, but let's say I bring in this wand here. Now, this wand by default would look something like this standard. That's what it would appear like if you don't change its render pipeline. So what you would do, you would go to File, Edit. Oh my goodness, it's not letting me click on Edit. There we go. Edit, and then at the bottom, Render Pipeline, Universal Render Pipeline, and then you can say Upgrade Project Materials to Universal RP Materials. And that should generally fix it. Now, there's certain instances where an object has a embedded material, and then you have to extract those materials, and then you can implement that solution. So that's a more advanced thing. It's not a big deal, the difference, but if you are interested in doing something like that, just keep in mind you need to extract the embedded materials. Anyways, we've got a nice wand in our scene, and as you can tell, there is a lot of choices as to what the wands look like, and there's different colors as well. I just happen to be grabbing the same ones over and over again. Okay, anyways, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to temporarily disable the visual. Where is Ollivander when you need him? I'm going to disable the visual aspect of my camera and my left hand so I can do this properly. So I'm going to select my left hand. I'm going to use this eye icon so I can't see it. My camera, I'll do the same thing so I don't see that. So right now, I'm just seeing my right hand. Now, I want to make a wand being held by this hand. Now, it's a little tricky. Well, it's very tricky. It's a little annoying, actually. So tedious portion of this workshop, but I'm just going to show you how to do it. So I want one of these wands. It has a scene where you can see which wands there are. And there's different kinds of things. It doesn't have to be a wand. It can be an orb or something. But let me go with this arrow looking thing. So I'm going to take this arrow and make it a child of my right hand, like so. There we go. So this happens to be green. I won't worry about the color. I'll leave it be. But there you go. So I have this wand, and it is a child of my hand. When I talk about parent-child relationships, basically, if I move a parent object, everything that's underneath it will move. If I move just the child object, you'll see it won't affect the parent. So these kinds of techniques can be implemented. For now, just know that the wand should be a child of the right hand. And as you can see, the drop down appears here to create the hierarchy, right? Anyway, so we've got this wand as a child of this hand, and it's going to move along great. Now, if you wanted to adjust the way it's being held, you can do something like this. So, for example, I move the wand up. You can see the fingers are intersecting it. But if I expand the right hand model, and thankfully Oculus has done this for us, they've added an armature or rigged this 3D model such that it has bones we can alter. So I'll click on this second set drop down, and you can go down this list and alter certain things. So let's say, for example, my index finger, I click on this one, and then I can rotate this up, something like this. And then maybe I want to take my thumb, and where's my thumb here? And I'll rotate this one a little bit like this. And it's going to look a little weird sometimes. As you can imagine, they're not really giving you any sort of restriction. So if you wanted, you could even like go like that, which, would look very strange. So something that you'll have to mess around with for sure to get a good feel for it. But I'm going to stop there because this could take some time. And we'll move on. So there is a good positioning of our right hand. The wand is good. All right. So now we have our left hand. Oh, let me go back. We have our left hand and our camera back in the scene. Let's test this out. What does this look like? So in my scene, you can see I have my hands there showing. I can move my head, but I have nothing happening right now. So what we'll do now, it's great doing VR workshops because I can like hide my bald head. Anyway, just kidding. All right. So let's take a look at implementing some sort of interaction. Now, for us to cast a spell, we have to actually create the spell first. So what it's aerodynamic. I love that. All right. We need to create the spell itself. So the spell I created is designed to be like a lightning spell. And when it hits something, it uses what's called a sub-emitter that creates another spell on impact, that kind of thing. You don't need to hear with a good looking face. Ah, now you're being too kind. All right. All right. Okay. So let's try out creating a spell. So I'm going to create a effect here. So if I right click in here or click on game object at the top, go down to effects and create a particle system. Boom. And now the default particle system looks pretty bad and rather large. So what we're going to do is alter this quite a bit. So first things first, I want to make the rotation 0, 0, 0 so that I don't have any weird unpredicted direction happening. So it's going the right direction, it seems. Forward direction, as you can see along the blue axis. That's what you want it to do, right? Otherwise it's a bit more difficult to work with. But there we go. So it's moving in the right direction. You can see the duration of it. Okay, 5 seconds, it's fine. It's looping, which we'll disable later. And you can see a few different options. So first, the lifetime property. This determines how long each particle survives. So you can see how this particle will eventually disappear because it's going to die. So that's one thing we'll keep in mind. And since we want a lightning particle, we want it to be rather fast. And so if it's going to be really fast, we don't really want it to, live that long, to say the least. So I'm going to reduce the lifetime to, let's say, 2 seconds. Now, as you can see, they're not going nearly as far, but I can increase the speed to something like 20. Now you can see they're going a lot faster, which is one step. Now, what we wanted to do is kind of jog around. We don't want it to be, actually, first off, we don't want it to be many particles. We just need one lightning to burst out of our hand. That's really all we need. So I'm going to reduce the number of particles. So there's a section that says emission. If I expand that section, I can see how many particles spawn over time. And if I wanted, I can make this really high. And then, that's not particularly useful for what we're trying to do, but I can set the rate over time to 0. And now no particles are spawning. But what I want to do is create a burst. You'll often find these burst effects being used for fireworks. So, but what I want is just one burst. I want to burst. And if I restart this, boom, you can see it's just a burst. But I don't want the number of particles to be 30. I just want one particle. So when I hit restart, boom, you see one particle going. But right now it's pretty random, the direction it's going. I want it generally to be going forward. And that's because, well, the shape of it, as you can see, is randomly choosing along this direction, which happens to be a cone and all that. So it's not great. What we'll do is we can keep the cone shape, but I'm going to change the angle to be 0. So it's going to shoot straight. As you can see, it's shooting straight now. And what I want next is the radius thickness to be 0 as well. So actually the radius itself to be 0. So boom. So now it's always going to be a straight shot. Perfect. That's what I want. The lightning should shoot straight, roughly. And now the next thing we'll want to do is say, okay, so that's great. Radius is going, looks good. What we're going to do next is say, well, we don't really want it to be this little particle that we got going. And this particle, we want it to leave behind a trail as well. So let's try the trail first. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this trail. We're going to enable trails. And so when the trail is going, and there you can see that's happening. Not really a trail we want, but it's a trail. So we're going to start by editing the trail material. So we go back down to this renderer section. You'll see a trail material option. Click on that, and I'll just pick the default line trail. As you can see, it's going pretty good. Now, it's a little too thick, so I don't want it to do that. What I can do is decrease the size of my lightning particle. So right now I can say, okay, the start size, if you take a look here, set to 1, but we can make that much smaller, something like this. So 0.03, I think looks decent enough. You can, adjust that to your liking, or you can just make different spell altogether. It's just an example. So there's one thing. We got the material going, and the actual particle that shows up at the beginning of it, the little dot. You don't even want, if you don't want that, you can just turn that part off. But we'll keep it for now. Okay, so there is our trail, and our trail, you got to go with a cyan color maybe, so it looks a little bit nicer. And there's a color over trail. That's really the one you actually want to change. That's where the color is mainly affected. So now we got this nice color property going. And the next thing we'd want is to make some noise. And what I mean by noise, I mean distortion, really. So I'm going to enable this noise property, and you can see how it's already starting to jiggle a little bit. And you can alter that to your liking. You can say, you know what, I want it to be a little more wiggly, right? That kind of thing. So you can alter that as you want. I'm just going to leave it for now as 1. The trail that I've already created for you guys looks pretty good. And so you can copy the points from there if you want a better looking trail. But that's great. So that's one trail effect. We're using noise and combining these other things together. Now, if I'm pointing this trail towards the floor, well, it just kind of goes through the ground. And it's not really useful for us. So perhaps I want to add some sort of collision. So there is a collision section as well in our trails. Now, this is the thing that's not really available in VFX Graph, because once again, the CPU handles your physics calculation. So I'm going to enable collision. So now you should see that we can change it a little bit more. So collision is activated. And the type of collision, instead of planes where we predefine where it can collide, I'm just going to set that to world. So now it can collide with the ground. And you can alter quite a bit here. You can say, okay, does it even bounce that much? Maybe the bounciness isn't that powerful. So you can see how that's changed quite a bit. You can say as soon as it hits, in fact, you don't even bounce. You just immediately die. As soon as you hit, boom, the particle's over. So something like that. You can alter these however you want it to behave. But I'll leave it like this for now. All right, so that gives us a good looking particle effect, or a trail. And once again, if you check out the actual line renderer in the scene, you'll in the project, I mean, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. So let's take a look at this in play mode, just so that I don't have it selected while this is going on, just so I can show you. By the way, while you're in play mode, you can actually switch back to the scene view, and you can see that in action. See, it's looking pretty good. Okay, but yeah, so that's one thing to keep in mind. Let's go back to our scene view and particle system. So that looks okay. But one of the things we might want, can you create weather like thunderstorms in Unity? Oh, heck yeah. Definitely, Shayna. It's a lot of fun creating those kinds of effects. For example, this is my whole, circus of effects that I work on. So there's definitely a lot of things you can do. For example, you can even create interactive shaders like that. So there's a bunch of stuff you can do, and then a bunch of stuff we like to cover in class: realistic water, cartoony water, outline effects, all sorts of stuff, like a technique that we implemented later. But anyways, a bunch of stuff that you can do, but this is not to worry about for now. I want to live inside the effects testing room. All right. So now back to this. So we created a basic lightning strike kind of thing, but you might want to have some more fun and create things that happen when you hit something, as an example. So we have this thing called a sub-emitter. So you can see that under, where is that? emitters. Oh, I gotta scroll down some more. There we go. Sub-emitters. So this you can say, okay, sub-emitters, you can say, okay, I want on collision, sub-emitters, I want to spawn another particle system. So I'll let you guys kind of mess around with this a little bit because I don't have enough time to cover everything. But again, it's in the project and you can just look through the settings and you'll find that, oh, that looks, pretty good. Get an effect that way. But we'll leave it as a simple lightning strike for now. Again, I don't want to lose all you guys here. Okay, so anyways, we've got a nice simple effect. Oh, by the way, if you don't want to accidentally constantly select the terrain, one thing I like to do is set the environment to unselectable. So I click on this little no touch icon, and so now when I click, it doesn't accidentally select the things I don't really want to work on. Okay, anyways, there we go. Those are the steps you can take to set up the visual aspects. Now let's set up the actual code environment to pull the trigger, you make something happen, right? So I'm going to go back to our assets folder. I'm going to go into a folder for scripts that you should go to. But before we do that, I want to finish up our lightning thing. There's one more thing. So you see how I shoot lightning, but it's on a loop, right? It's going to keep doing that. I don't actually want that to happen when we spawn the lightning in. So I'm going to uncheck the looping property, and that should be enough for us. It's just the first time it spawns in, it shoots. Great. And now one of the things we often do is create a prefab. So you should always have a prefabs folder in your project. It's very rare that you wouldn't use prefabs, but let's have a prefab folder. And in there, we want to drag and drop our particle system into here. Now I might want to rename this one to, test something. Okay, I'll just go with test. But there's a nice Spark spell already for us. I'm going to delete this from our scene now. Basically, I saved it as a file in my project, which allows me to just drag them in whenever I want. But anyways, I'll leave that alone there. Okay, so we've got our, oh, no, I didn't mean to delete the particle. It's the prefab, I meant to delete it from the scene. Oh, glad I had one in there. Whew. Okay, anyways, so we've got the prefab that we're going to spawn. Let's go to our scripts folder, which you might not have one by default when creating a new project, or you might if you're creating a URP project. But anyways, we want to create a script that handles the casting of our spells. Won't worry about the target. That's something I'll let you all discover. It's a nice bit of code, even for people who are a bit more advanced. Makes collision detection with particles really simple. Okay, so I'm going to create a new C# script. I'm going to call it caster. Got the other one called spellcaster, but it'll be all right. A little different. So this is where we struggle to open up something. All right, let's move this over here. Oh, don't crash on me there. Okay, there we go. So it's always the fear. This is also why you should save your scene very frequently. Okay, I'll just reload that. Oh, let me just move this out of the way here. Oh, it's scary, it's scary. All right, no, we're good. It's not that bad. I'm just joking around. I will move this out of the way here. There we go. And this is the script we created, and we'll take a look at it real quick. But in the meantime, I'm just going to save this scene as in our scenes folder as one. You can name it whatever you like, but I am the worst with names, as everyone who's taken my class will tell you. But I get the job done. That's what matters. All right. So now what we have here is what's called a code stub. This gives you the base of where you can program from. Now, getting into coding in its own can be a bit of a time sink. So I'll just show some basic code and talk about what that's doing. I created a spellcaster script for you guys in the project. There's a simpler one here that we'll cover, and then a slightly more advanced one where you can add a delay to your spellcasting. So that's option for you all. Anyways, let's talk about this. So our script, one of the first things you'll see is using directives. This is about adding more functionality to this particular class or script. This is kind of defining the name and its inheritance. So this basically, once again, it's adding more functionality to your script. The start function, this is basically whatever code you write in here happens in the kind of the first frame. There's some other functions. There's a function called the awake function that happens sooner, but I digress. This happens right away, called right before the first frame, and then there's an awake function that's called before that, but we'll leave it be. Okay, so first frame, if this script is active, boom, that's gonna happen. So we don't really need any of that functionality, so we'll leave that be. But the update function is called once per frame. So this is running constantly in the background. And this is what's going to take up majority of your scripting resource in your project. You'll definitely have more than one script in your project, or at least you should, unless your project is just so incredibly simple that you don't need to, but I wouldn't suggest writing everything in one script. So the update script runs constantly. Whatever code you write in here, every frame it's running, it's running, it's running. And if you're using the Oculus Quest, this function should be running at 72 frames per second. So 72 times a second, this function would execute its code. So there's some things called a variable that we'll need to create. Think of these things like buckets that store information. That's kind of the idea. I'm going to make a slightly simplified version of it here. So bear with me, the more advanced developers. I'm not going to use a serialized field, but I'm going to create a public variable. So this script, this variable, this bucket will be visible to me in Unity rather than only in the code. So I'll say public instead of serialized private. And a string is something that is like a word, letters. Awesome. I love C#. Right on, Benjamin. We do cover it in the dev course quite a bit. And so the public string will be m underscore. Oh, you know what? I'll avoid Hungarian notation for the workshop. Trigger button. So this variable, this bucket called trigger button, is going to store some information for me. And since it's a string data type, it'll store something like a word. Okay, the next one, I'm going to create a public game object. Oh, again, public, so I can see it in the inspector. What was that? Hungarian notation? Oh, don't worry about it, Ronan. There, it's you can look it up. It gets pretty in depth, but it helps you organize the code a little bit. So if, for example, I type m underscore here, and then my next script, next variable here is my m underscore basic spell, I can go in my code and just say m underscore, and it'll list off all my variables. As an example, m also defines member variables that are, available throughout the class, and it helps you distinguish between member and local variables and static variables and all that stuff. But yeah. Anyways, so I've got a trigger button variable name. I've got a basic spell, which is a type game object. So this is actually going to reference our lightning spell. The next variable we're going to create is a spawn point. So this is a type transform variable. We'll explain that soon as well. I'll just call this spell spawn. There we go. So this transform, if you remember seeing this, if I select an object, so let's say my right hand, it has a transform component. So we'll be referencing this thing. And one of the things it can say for us is a position. So we're going to have something that tracks a position for us to bring in our basic spell into the scene when we pull the trigger. So that's why we created these three buckets of information. So in our update function, what we're going to do is we're going to say if, there's the base logic you'll come across first is like, if this is true, then do something. That's the idea. So if input dot get button down, and in here we say trigger button. There we go. So if, and the condition is if you press down the trigger button, that's what this line of code does. And trust me, a lot of this actually becomes repetitive. So it might be tricky to think, oh, it's hard to remember. Oh my God, there's so much that's new. But honestly, after like, I don't know, a week of doing code work, it starts to be a little like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm starting to get it. And then after months, it's like, oh, okay, there's a lot to it. I get it's tricky, but I understand and I know how to learn. And then after like a year, you're like, oh yeah, this is nothing. Yeah, whatever. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to say game object go. Now, this is a local variable. It's going to just live and die within this if statement. But if you press the button, what I want to do is I want to create a game object that will store the value from this thing called an instantiate function. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to instantiate, which is like the same thing as saying bring into the world or spawn or something like that. I'm going to bring into the world the basic spell, and I'm going to bring it in to the spell spawn dot position, and I'm going to make it the spell spawn dot rotation. Those are the ways I can bring something in. This function is really useful. It allows me to bring something in at a particular position with a particular rotation. And that's important, right? We got to be able to do that. And then we say, okay, you know what? We don't want 100 spells left over, that kind of thing. Exactly. What we're going to do then is say destroy go after 3 seconds. So this is another function. So this is create something into our scene and take it out of our scene. Bring it in, take it out. So those are some fundamental things. Manifest and destroy. Manifest. Oh, okay, yeah, exactly. The key thing is we've already created this. It's like a file in our project, and we're bringing it into the scene. It can neither be created nor destroyed. There's this thing called destroy immediate that can really mess with your project assets. So be aware of that. Okay, but in my scene now, I've got my wand, I've got my script going. I'm going to do this. I'm going to drag and drop my caster script onto some object. Doesn't really matter. I'll drag it onto my right hand, the one with the wand. And you can set it up so that your wand is for your left hand, or some code that allows you to switch between the two, that kind of thing. Or both hands have wands and you're shooting like two pistols, double pistol kind of thing. But anyways, our right hand has the caster script. The trigger button, this is the name on our script. So if we go to edit project settings in our input manager, we can find the name of what input we want it to be. And this time we're going to say, okay, this is the input we want, so I'm going to get the name. But if you didn't want it to be the right trigger, you can say, you know, maybe it's the right index touch or some other button. I would highly recommend it being the right trigger button. That's the funnest. It's like shooting a pistol kind of thing. So I'm going to copy that name just to make it a lot easier instead of using enums or something, and paste that into there. So that's the input we're going to use. The basic spell, if I go to my prefabs, there it is. I'm going to drop that into there. And the spell spawn. So I need to drop that information to there. But I don't really have one yet. So I'm going to go to my wand, and you can see the wand kind of starts all the way back here. It's not really the good spot for me. So what I'm going to do, I want to make sure I'm in local position so this lines up well. I'm going to right click on that. Right click on the wand, create an empty game object. And this empty game object, I'm just going to move that over to the tip of my wand. And I want it to be rotated such that it's facing forward. So let me rotate this a little bit. Wait a minute. I can't really see it. So I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees up. And so it's facing like that. And then I'll rotate 180 degrees this way. So it's facing like that. So basically the values you end up with are negative 90 in the X and 180 in the Z. And then the distance you want it to be from the tip of the wand. So you move it kind of where you want the spells to spawn. So now that I have that, we can go to our right hand. We have the input name. We have what we're spawning in and where we're going to spawn it. And maybe it makes sense to rename this to something like spell spawn, something like that. Okay, so there we go. That sets up our scene for the basics here. I'm going to hit play. I'm going to try this out. Here we go. Boom. And so I can shoot my spell. It's got a nice little bit of noise. And if it hits the ground, it bounces around, which is really fun to have that interaction with the environment. Right? That's a lot of fun. So now, if you wanted, you could add in this target script we've created. And I'll just quickly explain that real quick. real quick. And that one looks like this. So this is if a particle collides with something, we then say, okay, do something. And in this case, we just change the color of the thing that this script is on, that kind of thing. All right. So I'll stick around after Lucy's presentation to answer some questions. In the start method, just instantiate the singularity and watch Unity create a black hole. Right. And as a side note, once again, we can go back to the regular scene here and just for fun, you can see that we've done that part and what the spell can look like. And so I made it a little bit thinner. We added a on collision. We added that sub emitter where you have some fun stuff going on. But yeah, so there's a lot of cool effects you can make with the Shuriken particle system and engage in VR. That's really, really interesting. And I wanted to show you all a tech demo that really drives home the point. I don't know if you'll be able to hear this, but so this one is the idea is you're a wizard, you have the wand, and this is where this workshop was inspired from. So you choose a spell, and then you can go crazy with what you're spawning and choose a plethora of spells. So hopefully you'll get to enjoy this sometime in the future. It's a big project, so let's see what's going on. Yeah, so I'm going to show the implement to the gravity to the spells. Sure. So we had a quick question here. Could you quickly show us how to implement gravity on the particles? Sure, yeah. So if I have our particles in our scene, so say our test spell, as you can see, it kind of goes off like that. I'll add it to be straight here. Let me rotate it. So as you can see, when I shoot the particle, boom, it just goes straight. Oh, it bounced off something, so I'll move that. It just shoots straight, yeah? But if you wanted to implement gravity, you'll see that the Shuriken system actually provides a gravity modifier. If you set that to 1, that's essentially having normal gravity. And so you can see it then has a bit of an arc due to gravity. Hopefully that answers your question, all right? Okay, but I'll let it go to Lucy, and then if you guys can stick around after her presentation, we'll do a little bit of a Q&A. Thank you all for sticking with me here, and best of luck covering this in the recording.
Yay, amazing. Now, instead of claps, I want you all to join me in saying, Wingardium Leviosa.
All right, cheers.
Bye. See you soon, Ozzy. All right, so before I Accio Ozzy back, I'm just going to wrap up with a couple of resources first. But of course, we can give Ozzy claps or snaps, or, pick your spell of the day. Brilliant. All right, so Ozzy, I'm just going to exit your screen here. I'm going to share my screen again. So we're going to get to Q&A super quickly. I just want to do a wrap up. Nerd levels max. I know. I think Nakisa would be proud of me, right? She would. She's always so good at this stuff. All right. So before I wrap up, I would love to know the following for our second and last poll of the day. On a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this workshop? So don't post in the chat, post in the polls tab, please say that 10 times fast. And please let us know. It helps us to make sure our workshops are relevant, that you guys like it, that we're including everything that we need to include. So it's super useful if you vote. Alrighty, so I'm going to try to do this super quick. So I wanted to start off going over our courses in a little bit more detail. If you love the workshop and you thought, that's amazing, I want to learn how to do that, and how can I do that? All right, so if you're interested in doing this with Circuit Stream, we are having our next XR Development with Unity course on November 30th. So just, what Ozzy did today, you'll be doing a lot of the similar things in this course. So the course is totally beginner friendly. You learn how to make AR and VR apps on Unity, and you have 3 hours of, Clumsy fingers. You have 3 hours of live instruction per week. So that's one of our core principles, is live instruction. And Ozzy saying, yeah, just slower and at a speed you can actually follow along for sure. And we have challenges after each class, assignments where you really get to practice, everything that you're learning. It's you get 5 office hours per week to get contact with an instructor live to answer your questions. So really, there's a lot of support. It's also flexible and part-time. So we do have some students that work full-time, for example. You do need to dedicate, we recommend at least 6 hours outside of the live sessions, to make sure that you're absorbing the material, but it is totally doable. And Louise, yes, is one of our alums, is awesome. You can check out one of her projects in our demo day recordings on YouTube. What are the time zone you're working in? So we have the time slots range per course, but for XR Dev, we have 3 time slots. So 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 3:30 p.m. Pacific, and 6:30 p.m. Pacific. 90 minutes of live instruction. So really, hopefully that caters to where you are. So all the classes are also recorded, and you get lifetime access to them in the course. You get lifetime access to our office hours as well. So we support even our alums. The course is also portfolio-based. So for example, today, Ozzy built a project with you all. So you would be doing the same thing in the course, but you would have 8 projects. So when you're done, you really have lots of great materials to show off to colleagues and potential employers. So all of our courses are in Pacific time zone. But for example, you have lots of students in Europe who take the morning course, right? Because then it'll be evening for them. So it all depends on how that converts to where you are locally. And you also get industry recognized certifications, and you can add on weekly one-on-one support to work on a personal project. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we have our university partnerships, and we offer this course through them as well. So why are these interesting? Because you can network with people in your area, and you can get certifications from these universities as well, which is pretty cool. So we have UBC Extended Learning XR Dev on November 16th. So Dayan is going to be posting the link shortly, and I'm trying to buy him time so that he has time to post in the chat. And it's coming. I can sense it. Ulysses, once we take a course, can we be rolling in the future as an alumni? For sure. And we actually have discounts for alums. I think it's about 20%, which is pretty cool. All right. Dee, do you have the link to UBC Extended Learning? I can also grab it. We'll have it. I'll repeat it later on, and so we can post during that time. I think that'll be easier. And then we also have the University of Toronto School of Continuing Studies. XR Dev also starts on November 16th. So that's where you can sign up. Okay. And Dijon just posted the link to the course through UBC Extended Learning. So there you go. And now he'll be posting the one for the University of Toronto. So these courses will be, this is at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. This is at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So it's really great for people in that area. You can take those courses if you're not in that area, but of course, it's better if you are. And then we also have the Talent Ladder powered by IWU, XR Dev. They all start on the same date. So this will be in Eastern time as well, 7:30 p.m. if I'm not mistaken. And then last but definitely not least, we have XR Dev through NAEP Continuing Education. And it's also at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Alrighty, so that's our XR Dev course. So that does have coding involved, and you're creating experiences in Unity, right? And then we also have our interaction design and prototyping for XR course. That one is coming up on November 8th. And there's no coding in this one, and you learn how to design experiences for AR and VR, and you understand the differences from web and mobile apps, techniques to create XR prototypes, and the rest of the structure is pretty much the same. So I'm going to show you examples of, what you can do in this course. So here we have some examples of storyboarding. Some students use, just draw on paper. Some use some online apps. And then some students use Shapes XR. So really we present lots of various tools. And then this is an example of one of our students, Amy Trevino, who did all of the prototyping, as you can see, and then created it in Unity, which is pretty cool. And then last but not least, we have our new course launching on November 29th. So that's the Introduction to Unity 3D Development. So it's just a little bit shorter, 8 weeks. We still get 64 hours of instruction. It is also beginner friendly. All of these 3 courses are. And you learn Unity fundamentals as well as how to create a 3D application in Unity. So if you're a super, super, super beginner and you're not sure if you want to go into XR Dev or maybe design, this can be a great starter course for you, right? So it's also the same perks. All 3, you get the same perks. Dayan is posting the link to each of these courses if any of you want to check it out or download a syllabus or contact us for more info. As I mentioned, you do get certifications, our certifications, if you complete all of these 3 courses. So these are our own, and you can take the exam to get Unity certifications. We prepare you for those as well. So I'm going to give you a snapshot of what our students do. After taking our courses, we have some that get jobs in XR, such as Lee Walker, and he's actually going to be part of our next open house for XR Dev, so you should definitely check it out. It's on November 4th. I'm going to be talking about it soon. We have Michael Oakes, who's working in Unity. We have students who are upskilling in their own companies. So Andrew Alderetti, who's like XR extraordinaire, who became a developer at Cine Concerts, where he was already working. We have, some entrepreneurs opening VR studios. We have Kim, who is into Design XR, who's going into teaching and really becoming an influencer in this area, as well as Jennifer, who got some funding from Oculus. Community and support, I'm almost done, is a super big part of CircuitStream if you haven't noticed already. So our XR community on Slack is super engaged. We have weekly announcements, news, events, job opportunities, opportunities to showcase your work, to collaborate. There's so much you can do. We also have at least 5 office hours per week. Right now we have 6, and you have access to those even as an alum. Some of the events that we do is VR Coffee Hour in VR, Show and Tell, where you get live demos from instructors. For example, Ozzy is going to be showing how to work with shaders this Friday. We have demo days, game jams. We have our game jam opening this Friday. I'm actually going to get the link to post to you guys so you can participate. It's open to everyone. So we organize game jams with prizes. We have local meetups as well as speaker events with XR companies. So this week we had a lot of people come and talk to our students, and they're looking for talent. Drinking coffee in VR can get messy, it's true, but we've become really good at it. The coffee is also digital, it's true. All right, so I know some of you asked about the cost. So what does this all cost you? So if you get the starter pack, so that includes either the XR development with Unity course or interaction design and prototyping for XR. You also get the Unity certification exam. That's just for the XR Dev course. That's $39.50. And we do have multiple payment plans to make that amount a little more accessible. Now, we really recommend that you get the Plus package, which includes everything in the starter pack, plus C# scripting fundamentals, which gives you the base for the course. Andrew's saying, hey, everyone, take them all. Trust me, they're all great. It's true. It's true. You get an Oculus Quest 2, and you get 10 hours of one-on-one with an expert. So really, students, that's one of our biggest values is in the one-on-ones where you get to create a personal project. That and our live sessions, our students value those the most. Live sessions, one-on-ones, and community. So that is $49.50, and you save over $900. So I know about you all, but I really like a deal. That seems like a pretty good one to me. So we have various payment plans, 3-month, 6-month, and 12-month as well. So we really dilute that amount. As I mentioned earlier, you can also have built team training opportunities, so we can build a customized plan for you if you're an educator or a business for your team. And let's say if you're a super expert, you can purchase just one-on-one sessions with one of our XR experts. All of these are tongue twisters, right? XR experts, XR extraordinaire. Wow, I don't need to go to you understand what I mean, right? Okay, so we have 6 packs and 13 packs. So you also get a deal on getting those. Really helps you to build a project. All right, so if you're interested in any of these courses, or you'd like to take a look, or you'd like to apply, or you would just like to know more, no strings attached, you can go to our websites to take a look. So if you're interested in taking the course through UBC Extended Learning, this is the link. Then we have the same one for University of Toronto School of Continuing Studies, the Talent Ladder powered by IWU, Nate, and then through Circuit Stream directly if it's not in your best interest to take it through the universities, right? Depends on what you're looking for. I see we've had some questions, but I think Dion is answering them. If I didn't get to your question, you can add it to the questions tab, and then we will definitely get to it. All right, so when you do reach out to us, you'll be talking to one of our lovely admissions team people. So we have Ro, Leanne, Ty, Christina, and Brendan. They're all super nice. They're awesome. And, even if you have questions, they're just great to talk to. You're feeling lonely. They're great to just hit up and talk to them. All right, so I was talking about Circuit Stream Open House. We have one for XR development. So if you're interested in that course, we're going to be diving deep and talking more about the curriculum and really what it entails. So it's on November 4th at 12 p.m. Pacific time. And you can sign up. And we'll have our special guest, Lee Walker, who is a Circuit Stream alum and who's currently working at Kaleidoscope XR as a solutions architect. So Dayan just posted the link in the chat where you can sign up. And yes, Lee Walker is legit. All right, so I'm done with my portion. I'm going to invite Ozzy back on stage so we can go to the Q&A. But I would also like to invite you all to join us on Slack. That way we can get connected. We can stay connected. We're already connected. What am I saying? And, Ozzy's there. Dayan is there. We'll announce our workshops, all that good stuff. Woo.
All right. I am back to answer some questions. I'm
Perfect.
a little bit running out of time because I do have a meeting right after. So I will rapid fire answer as many questions as I can. Okay, so I see I signed up for a class somewhere else and they are just covering the free classes already offered by Unity. I am sorry that you had to experience that, Ulysses. That kind of is. I won't badmouth anyone else, but that sucks.
One thing, Ozzy. Sorry, are you reading these from the questions tab?
Yes.
Do you want to organize them by upvotes? Because then I can post the question for everybody to see.
I'll just finish this one. You paid for free content. I paid for free content. Do you make your own learning content? Yes. Apart, like session 1, we cover basic Unity stuff, but after that, it's all unique content. When you see the curriculum, you'll find that that's the case, because especially all of it is XR oriented. Mm-hmm. All right. Sure. Can you show me the upvoted thing?
Yeah, on the top there's order by, and then you can select upvotes.
I see. Okay. Looks like that one's answered. During the course, do we have the same live interface? The quality is problematic. I can barely read the instructor screen. Understandable. We actually use Zoom for our actual classes, and there isn't that much lag, and it looks really good. And I stream at 1080p on that one instead of 720p like I have to for this platform. So great question. No, it will look much better in the other. But then John is asking, what is the theme for the itch.io game jam going to be? Any hints? No, I can't tell you that. Sorry. Lean Pete. About taking the course through a university, you said it's better if we are in the area of the university. Why? What does it mean? What is it? So that's more about building relationships. I think one of the most important things you get out of university is the people you meet and the relationships you form, because that can lead to quite a few different avenues for employment. But no, just knowing people in the same area, you can work together much more easily. But modern day COVID environment, it doesn't matter as much. But that's kind of the idea. What is more expensive processing to use for FX shaders? What is more expensive processing to use for FX shaders or particle? So it depends. It If you can use a VFX graph, that is going to perform much better. If you really need the physics behavior of the Shuriken system, that's going to offload your. That's going to put the grunt work on your CPU. And generally, you want to offload stuff on your from your CPU to your GPU, because your GPU doesn't really do much else besides visual, right? It doesn't handle so much your code, your scripting, your physics, certain renderings. It's all kind of CPU, so offload to your GPU when you can, and VFX Graph does that. I understand we can toggle wand on off by putting it as a child of hand, but what if we wanted to make it a pickup object? So Jimmy, that's a great question. We cover grabbable objects in the courses, so that's definitely something we can do. I don't know if you have access to the Slack, but every day we hold, well, except Saturday, Sunday, we hold office hours. So if you're an alumni, you can drop in there at any time and ask as detailed questions as you want. On Monday, we actually do two sessions, one in the morning, one in the evening, that kind of thing.
Well, Wednesday as well.
Same with Wednesday. Yeah, there you go. So what, 6 sessions a week?
Yeah.
And yeah, so you if you're an alumni, you can get to those whenever you want. But Lucy, I do have to get going. My one-on-one is beginning, so I
Okay.
will catch you guys next time. And on Thursday, we are doing another workshop, and look forward to answering some more questions there. Can this be used for developing games for Facebook VR? I don't see why not. Is there a way to develop XR using the newer input system? Yes, there is. What does making a variable serializable private do? A private variable is not shown in the inspector. Serializing it will make it visible in the inspector. Is there financial assistance? I don't know about that. But yeah, rapid fire. Sorry, I gotta go. Take care.
Okay, thanks, Ozzy. Bye. I'll answer the questions that I know. Oh. Sorry, everyone. There's a phone ringing somewhere. I can't find it. Oh. Sorry, everyone. So Ozzy had to go, but you can catch him on Slack. So there's a question here. Is there financial assistance for the extra development with Unity course? No, but I believe sometimes students can get their companies to pay for it. And I believe through some of the universities, there might be like tuition reimbursement. I think there's something like that. So definitely you can reach out to one of our admissions advisors, and then they can answer that question in more detail. All right, let's see. Let me see if there's anything else I can answer. So Julie, does my computer need any system specs, especially graphic card? For sure. So Diane posted in the chat, will it run? So it's our blog where you can really understand what type of computer you need to run VR. And we also do an XR tech orientation for the students that sign up for our course, where they can understand, what they need to do, how to run VR, even if they don't have a computer that's that great. We'll give you guys the tools to make it possible. So Christian, will you be the main instructor for the November 30th course? So you're talking about Ozzy, right? I believe for November 30th, Ozzy won't be teaching that one. Ozzy will be teaching the Unity course. But we have other instructors just as amazing as Ozzy. I know it's hard to believe because Ozzy is so awesome, but just as amazing as Ozzy for those cohorts. Okay, and then we answered Ulysses' question. I think that's it, everyone. Apologies to those who didn't get their questions answered. Today, Ozzy was tight for time, but thank you so much for coming. Come to the workshop on Thursday if you can. So that one is going to be Unity Essentials workshop, Thursday, October 28th. So you can sign up on our website. And it's been amazing to, live this magical moment with you all. All right. Have a great rest of your days, and I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.